here in the Indy 500. Troy Ericson is on deck, and Matt's going to bring him here. Just a very important person in the world today of engagement. HigherOpenRate.com, the owner of this email paramedic, as they call him. I have an analogy of engagement, regardless whether it's recruitment and retention or investment that we've made in different things that we feel in person, on the phone, via email or social media. It doesn't matter if Tom Brady's on your team if he's not playing. It doesn't matter how big your database is if they're not engaged. It doesn't matter how many followers you have, if they're not engaged. And who is engaged is another interesting aspect. And Troy Ericson really has his finger on the open rate and the engagement of emails. And he instantly can create higher email open rates and resulting in quantitative value or sales. Troy, welcome to Office Hours, and very, very interested in how you do this. What are the differentiators? How have you been able to figure out what has been decades of struggle for most businesses and individuals on how to get sales?
Hey, thanks, David, for having me on again. It's a couple of times now in a couple of days, so it's really cool. To answer your question, it's the thing that I've realized is a lot of business owners, it's like, they have something they're super passionate about. They want to get it out to the world, and they're more worried about like, okay, let me set up this whole email thing, type a few messages out, and then just let it rock and see what happens. And even if businesses grow and they have teams and they start to manage it, but they focus more on the content and they forget like, okay, let's make sure the maximum amount of people see it. So really what we do is we go in and we kind of like clean up some of the technical things that might have gotten missed. So what we're doing is we are segmenting lists better. We are writing more engaging content that people love. And at the same time, we're fixing the technicals of deliverability to pull emails out of the spam folder, out of the Gmail promo tab. In a lot of cases, some of our like best case scenario clients had literally double their open rates, which is wild because it's literally a 2x return. Like sales and impact closely follow open rates. So it's super important, and it's something that a lot of people need to focus on. It's not the sexiest thing to follow.
Is there a common? Good morning. How are you? Is there a commonality or common theme between the successful open message for various industries, or does it really depend on what the concept, product, or company is?
Yeah, it depends more on like how the audience was built, right? So like if you look at somebody like David, he's probably going to have higher open rates than most people, on an apples to apples comparison, simply because he has a really engaged audience. It's people that are coming to office hours. It's people that are watching on Instagram Live. It's people that might have been following him for 20 years, like who knows? And then for other people, it might be a little harder if they're just starting their business. Nobody really knows who they are. Another thing that can affect it is like, is your list comprised of buyers who have bought previous products from you before, or did they just opt in yesterday for something that's free? And then also the interest of the topic too, right? Like people are always going to pay attention if it's something that's super relevant to them right now, something that's like kind of a pain that they want to get solved, rather than something that's just like, it would be nice to have or nice to get fixed, but it's not urgent.
Troy, what are the steps that people, good morning, by the way, need to take in order to really optimize the kind of services that you're providing? And we know that you are. I see the clients that you're working with, Snow Teeth Whitening and others. I mean, you're at a really high level. But there are, kind of to elaborate on Dave's question a bit, there are industries and generational professionals that aren't thinking this way. I come, from the world of trial work as an attorney. I know a lot of attorneys don't think of business this way, doctors and others. What do they need to do in advance before they get to you so that you can, is it just compiling an email list? Does it start with something as simple as that before they get to you so that you can really implement all the things that you do?
Yeah, so the people that come to us and have the most success, or just in general, are people that they have a list, right? And they've built it up through either advertising or having a platform, like we mentioned. So having those two things, and then typically somebody who's, sent before and they've nurtured their list and they have like a plan and they know what they want to sell. They're just not exactly sure of the best way to do that. And they're not sure of best practices. So they've kind of like set things up more or less, but they're really not sure what to do next. And there's some simple things too, right? So it's like making sure that you're only mailing the most engaged people, making sure that your content's super relevant, that you're sending 2 or 3 times a week, because that alone, it's like a lot of people will miss that. It's like the more volume you put out, the more chance you have to either make sales, make impact. And another big one too is just treating people like humans. And a lot of people will just like blast out a bunch of promotional content, and like that's when people hate on email. They're like, oh gosh, I gotta get another email. But when you tell stories and you relate to people and you make them feel understood, and even somebody like David, if they can feel that they can relate to David, it's like you're doing a good job, because it's like at this point, most people aren't at his level. But if you can say like, hey, I've been in your shoes before, that's what makes people just really build that bond with you.
And the value of email, Troy, it's an area that I have focused in on, and on all areas and all platforms, I focus in on realizing that until, Mike Mamula calls me and tells me, hey man, you're sending me too much stuff, you're bothering me, until he calls me and tells me that, I haven't even reached the minimum amount on the platform that he complains about, because until the people, that care about you, love you, get annoyed by you, you haven't even hit the minimum, because most people aren't even aware of you until somebody, even one person, tells you that. So I have found though that email, go ahead, Dave.
I just want to jump in because I don't have a chance to say this very often. And I'm one of your close friends, as is Mike, that talks to you on a regular basis. But even when I get those messages, even though I know that, I can speak to you at any time, they are super inspiring, and it feels like I'm connecting to you. So they feel super genuine. That's what I like about your emails, right? Because I can talk to you just generally, shoot the shit about whatever is going on in our lives, and you have the same tone. So I think one of the reasons why your emails are super successful and you have a better conversion rate is because they are really in your tone, in your cadence, and consistent with your message. I didn't mean to cut you off, but just
thank you, Dave. Anytime you want to kiss my ass, please just butt in. Tell everybody how much you love me. Anytime, Troy, you can do the same thing anytime. Mike, were you going to kiss my ass as well? I hope so.
I will. I'm gonna end the show with it.
All right, cool. Anyway, but to a true critical business issue, there's so much hype on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Facebook. My top of funnel is email. If you look at my funnel, right? Look at what's below my face right now, david@dmeltzer.com. And I personally answer those emails. It's something that you can do while you're on office hours, on IG Live. It's something you can do when you're giving speeches. You literally, with the, Outlook and the templating system, you can click and drag answers and customize them to the person so that they get that in spirit, that connectivity that Dave enjoys and I enjoy as well. So I just want to bring extra value to Troy, not to kiss his butt, but I think people undervalue email. And can you explain why email has a different interaction or, Dave, an emotional connection than just posting a video or a quote or a meme?
Yeah, it's interesting too. And the first time I kind of found you on social media and you're like, yeah, just email me. This is my personal email. I was like, what? Like, there's no way. And then I was like, well, I guess it is. So you get that like one-to-one touch that you normally can't get. And it kind of sits above everything else in terms of that connection, because I know that I'm going to be able to access that person, or I'm going to be able to get as close as possible to accessing that person. It's like when somebody gives you that, it's like, hey, I want you to contact me directly. Whereas like, TikTok and, Instagram and Facebook, those are great and people can have success across all these different networks. But at the same time, it's really hard for business owners to not get distracted because they hear that like TikTok is new and it's up and coming and you got to be running ads on there. Otherwise you're missing out. But the one thing that stayed consistent throughout the past like 20, 30 years almost, is email. And it's the thing to stay super connected with people. It's the thing that they're going to take most seriously. They sit down to read it, especially if they're, above like the Gen Z or Gen X or whatever generation is the kids these days. And especially B2B. And people just take it the most seriously. And when you're looking at different things, you have like a different lens that you look at them through. And I think that email's at one of the higher ones, especially if you're in business.
Troy, what's the necessity and importance of the relationship between you and your clients, right? If you want to convey that genuineness, that authenticity of what they instill or what they want in their product or service, how do you get that? Because other than that, it could be just spam or this and that. And oh, geez, I got another email from them and I can't open this and they're bothering me. What's the importance of that and how do you establish it?
Yeah. So, one thing we do for our clients is we'll manage their whole list for them. So we'll send all their emails because a lot of times they don't know what to do. So you're right, to do that and to do a good job at that, we have to be able to talk to them. We have an entire onboarding process lined up where we ask them all the questions about them. We get them to tell us some weird stories that they would never admit, just so we can kind of get a feel. And a lot of times when you tell those stories and you go down that route that most people will be like, gosh, I'm too afraid to tell that story about myself. That's what makes people read, because you're being authentic and genuine, kind of like David M said, or David Moreno. We've got two Davids. So that's super important. And then just also asking them about their market and making sure that we understand all the different stories that are going on and the different concerns they have, the different pains, because if we're going to help people with the solution, we have to know the problem that they're struggling with. And we put people through this whole list, and we talk to them, we find out, and then we also find out the unique things to their voice. And then at the same time, if they're not sure of anything, we literally just ask the list, which is kind of what I alluded to earlier. Most people, they just throw links and promos at you. But have you ever tried to reply email where you just say hey, what's your number one question about sports marketing right now? Or what's your number one question for me right now? Or something like that. And you'll learn a ton about your audience.
And just so we're clear, and Dave, if I can, just to jump on, just so we're clear, this applies to everyone, whether I'm a coach, a plumber, a pizza maker, a lawyer, et cetera, thinking of things in these terms, correct?
Yeah, I mean, some markets are going to be a little more straightforward. So if you're a plumber, you probably don't need to push out as much content, but if you put out a bunch of funny plumbing content that other people aren't willing to, you're probably going to blow up a little bit, and then you could even make some kind of info product around that. But even a question as simple as hey, has anything broke around the house lately that's annoying you? And then they'll reply, and you go to their house. But yeah, it's a lot easier for coaches, consultants, businesses, e-com stores, and anything in between.
Awesome. It is Troy Ericson. You need to create a higher priority to your emails and utilize higher open rate to make sure it's not going into the spam folder. Make sure you have the appropriate content to have credibility and emotional attachment. You can even go as far as articulating quantitative value within the context of an email. You can do so much more than you can do with a meme. Go ahead, check out Troy, make money, help people, and have fun by utilizing email in its appropriate and best use. Thank you so much, Troy, for coming on another one of my shows, man. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.